Have you ever watched an NBA game and just been struck by how effortlessly some players palm the ball?
Oh,
It's
yeah?
like they're making this regulation-sized basketball look like a toy, you know?
Yeah, like a grapefruit or something.
Exactly. And that really got us thinking, like, what's the story with these unusually large hands we see in the NBA? What kind of advantage do they actually give you on the court?
Right, because it's got to be an advantage, right?
You would think so. And that's what we're going to deep dive into today.
I love it.
So, to really get into this, we've got some great sources lined up.
It's fun.
We're going to be looking at articles, historical data, even some fun anecdotes about players and their hands. Our mission is to figure out which NBA players have had the most remarkably large hands
Oh,
and really try to understand the impact that has on the game.
I'm excited to dig in.
Me too. So to get started, it's not just about having big hands, right? You have to understand how hand size is actually measured in basketball.
Right, so we've got two key measurements here. We've got hand length. That's measured from the base of your palm to the tip of your middle finger.
Gotcha. So just like how you'd measure anything.
Exactly. And then you've got hand span.
Okay.
That's the distance between the tip of your pinky and the tip of your thumb when your fingers are spread out as wide as possible.
Okay, so like how far can you stretch your hand?
Exactly. And these measurements are key
Yeah.
because they can tell us a lot about a player's ability to control the ball grip, shoot pass, all that good stuff.
Right. And it's easy to assume that the bigger your hands, the better you are at all those things.
Right, you'd think so.
But it's not quite that simple, is it?
Not always.
I mean, just look at Shaquille O'Neal
Sure.
and dominant force in the game,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
but notoriously known for his struggles at the free throw line.
Right. And there's a theory out there
Yeah.
that his enormous hands actually might have made those free throws more difficult for him.
Interesting.
So it makes you think, right, is there a point where having super large hands might actually be a disadvantage in some aspects of the game?
Yeah, it's a fascinating question. Okay, so let's get into some specific players here
Let's do.
and some of these measurements because you sent me some information that really blew my mind.
Oh, yeah, there are some eye-popping numbers out there.
Oh, let's start with a name that probably comes to mind for a lot of people when we talk about big hands. Boban Marjanović.
Oh, yeah, Boban. He's got to be up there.
He's 7'3",
Huge guy.
a giant,
Absolutely.
but his hands are legendary.
Right. I mean, he's got a reported hand length of 10.75 inches
What?
and a span of 12 inches.
12 inches, that's a foot.
I know, it's crazy.
And people think he might actually have the largest hands of anyone in the world.
Yeah, some people say that.
Though it's hard to say for sure because we don't have like official records for everyone on the planet.
Right, it's mostly based on, pictures and comparisons.
Yeah, but have you seen those pictures of Boban holding things? It's wild.
Oh, yeah, the Boban holding things subreddit. I love that.
It's a whole phenomenon online.
It's amazing you see him holding like a wine bottle, and it looks like a miniature.
Or a baby.
Yeah, a baby. It looked like a little doll in his hands.
It's hilarious, but it really gives you a sense of scale.
Right. It really puts it into perspective.
So we see how massive his hands are, but how does that actually play out on the court? I mean, obviously it helps with gripping the ball,
Yeah,
but does it go beyond that?
I think it really does. For one thing, rebounding.
Okay.
Imagine trying to wrestle the ball away from somebody with hands that big.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Right. So he's got that going for him. And then just the sheer intimidation factor.
Oh, yeah.
You're going up against a guy with those mitts. You might think twice before challenging him in the paint.
It's psychological warfare.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And speaking of huge hands,
Okay.
we got to talk about Shaq.
Oh, yeah, bring on Shaq.
Right up there with Boban in terms of span, 12 inches.
12 inches again, wow.
And his length is just a fraction behind Boban's at 10.25 inches.
That's insane. And I mean, you mentioned his shoe size earlier.
Size 22.
Like, it's all part of this incredible physique
Right, it's all connected.
that made him such a force to be reckoned with.
Absolutely.
But let's get back to those free throws for a
Yeah.
second. I'm really curious about this idea that his hands might have actually worked against him there.
Yeah, it's a fascinating theory. So think about it biomechanically.
Okay.
With a larger hand, you've got more surface area in contact with the ball.
Right.
And that could make it harder to get that really consistent and subtle release that you need for a good free throw. It's almost like you're trying to do something really delicate,
Yeah.
but you're wearing these big, bulky gloves.
It's like trying to do surgery with oven mitts on.
Exactly. You lose that fine motor control. Okay, so we've talked about Boban. We've talked about Shaq.
Two legends.
Absolutely.
What about in today's NBA?
So the player with the largest recorded hands right now is Giannis Antetokounmpo.
The Greek freak.
That's right. He's got a hand length of 9.85 inches
Okay.
and a span of, you guessed it, 12 inches.
Always with that 12-inch span. It's like the magic number.
It seems to be the benchmark.
It's incredible. But with Giannis, it's not just about the size, it's how he uses them.
Yeah,
I mean, this
right.
guy is so versatile.
Oh, yeah.
For someone his size to handle the ball like he does to make those one-handed passes, it's unreal.
It's like he's got the ball on a string.
Yeah, it's like it's glued to his hand.
Yeah.
That grip must give him so much confidence when he's driving to the basket.
No doubt. His athleticism, his length, and those massive hands.
Yeah.
It's a deadly combination.
It's like he's rewriting the rules of the game.
He's one of a kind.
Totally. Now, you mentioned the NBA draft combine earlier and how they take all these measurements.
Yeah, it's like a scouting bonanza.
So are there any other players who stood out to you at the combine specifically because of their hands?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So there was this guy, Gregory Smith.
Gregory Smith. Okay, I'm not familiar with him.
He wasn't like a superstar or
Oh,
anything,
okay.
but his hand measurements at the combine were something else. 9.8 inches in length and a full 12 inches in span.
So he's right up there with Boban and Shaq.
Yeah, he was pretty incredible.
So even though he wasn't like a huge scorer or anything, those hands must have given him some advantages on the court, right?
Absolutely. People said his hand size was a major asset on defense.
I can see that.
You know, being able to contest shots, grab rebounds.
That reach.
Exactly.
It's got to be intimidating.
Oh, yeah. And there's this funny story that his hands were so big
Yeah.
that he actually got a spot in an ESPN SportsCenter commercial.
No way.
Yeah, just because of his hands.
Yeah.
So it shows you that even if you're not the star player,
Right.
a unique physical attribute like that can still make a difference.
It can open doors.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've talked about some current players, some recent players.
Yep.
What about some of the all-time greats?
Let's go back in time.
Let's delve into the history books. Let's start with Wilt Chamberlain.
Wilt the Big Dipper Chamberlain.
What a legend. I mean, his hands had to be enormous.
Oh, they were massive. 9.5 inches long and 11.5 inches wide for the span.
That's a big hand.
Still, yeah,
But
definitely.
I mean, it makes sense though, right?
Oh, yeah.
The guy was a
And
giant.
he was larger than life.
So you'd expect his hands to match.
Exactly. And when you think about his legendary 100-point game,
100 points in one game.
it's mind-boggling.
It's ridiculous. But you have to think those massive hands played a role, right?
Like, sure they did.
I mean, that control around the basket, that grip, that power.
It's all connected.
Yeah.
His overall size,
Yeah.
combined with that wide hand span,
Yeah.
it's no wonder he was such a dominant rebounder and scorer.
It's like he was built for the game. Okay, so Wilt Chamberlain, massive hands. What about Michael Jordan?
Michael Jordan the Claw.
Hmm.
Now, his hands were actually considered unusually large,
Really?
even for someone who is 6'6".
Wow, so for his height, they were even bigger than you'd expect.
Exactly. He had a hand length of 9.75 inches
Okay.
and a span of 11.375 inches.
So a little bit smaller than Wilt, but still huge?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And you know those iconic dunks?
Oh, yeah.
That ability to just palm the ball so effortlessly.
It was like he was holding a softball.
It was incredible.
It was part of what made him so legendary.
Right, it added to the mystique.
Totally. And it wasn't just about looking cool.
Right. Not at all.
That grip had to give him a real advantage.
Absolutely. Ball security, being able to execute fakes.
You know, it's funny.
Yeah.
I was reading that Kobe Bryant, another incredible player, reportedly envied Michael Jordan's hand size. And even Phil Jackson
Cool.
said that in a hypothetical one-on-one matchup, Jordan's bigger hands would give him the edge over Kobe.
That's a pretty big statement.
It is. It shows you that even at that level,
Yeah.
hand size matters.
It makes a difference.
Okay, so we've got Wilt, we've got Michael.
Two of the greats,
Another legend who comes to mind is Julius Erving.
Dr. J.
The man defied gravity.
Absolutely,
What's
yeah.
going on with his hands?
So his estimated hand length is 9.5 inches, and his span a whopping 11.75 inches.
11.75. That's getting close to Boban and Shaq territory.
It is.
And when I think of Dr. J, I think of those incredible dunks, that athleticism.
Right.
How did his hands play into all that?
Well, think about his most famous dunk.
The free throw line dunk?
That's the one. To launch yourself from that far out
Yeah.
and finish with one hand.
It's insane.
It takes incredible strength and control,
And grip.
especially grip. That hand size had to be a huge factor in being able to pull off something like that.
So it's like those big hands almost gave him like an extra connection with the ball.
Right, like an extra level of control.
Amazing. Okay, so we've talked about some players with like historically large
The
hands.
giants of the game.
But I'm curious about some of the more surprising cases.
Okay, like what do you mean?
Like players who maybe aren't as tall but still have these crazy big hands for their size.
I gotcha. Well, one example that comes by is Kawhi Leonard.
Kawhi the Claw Leonard,
That's right, another claw. His hands are the same length as Michael Jordan's.
9.75 inches, right?
You got it. And his span is 11.25 inches.
Okay, so big hands, but not quite as big as some of the other guys we've talked about.
Right, but what's really interesting about Kawhi is that his hands were huge even when he was a kid.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's a story about him trying to find football receiver gloves in high school,
Okay.
and he couldn't find any that fit.
Wow, so even compared to other athletes his age.
His hands were just enormous.
That's wild. Okay, so Kawhi Leonard, big hands from a young age. Who else?
Oh, there's Connie Hawkins.
Connie Hawkins, I don't know much about him.
He was a really gifted player, known for his creativity around the rim.
Okay.
He had a 10.5-inch hand length.
Whoa, that's long.
Yeah, and an 11-inch span.
So not the biggest span, but definitely long fingers.
Exactly. And that extra length probably helped him a lot when he was driving to the basket.
Makes sense.
You know, being able to reach around defenders, maintain control of the ball.
Right. So it's like having an extra few inches of reach.
Right. It gave him an edge.
Cool. Are there any other players from the draft combine that come to mind?
Oh, yeah, for sure. In 2014, Noah Vonleh had everyone talking.
Yeah, because of his hands.
His hands were the largest of any prospect that year.
Wow.
9.75 inches long
Okay.
and 11.75 inches wide.
Beating out even some taller players?
Exactly. It
Wow.
goes to show you hand size isn't always about height.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
What about Xavier Tillman Sr.?
Oh, yeah, he's another interesting case. So he's 6'7",
Okay. Not super tall.
but he's got a hand length of 10.25 inches
Wow.
and an 11-inch span.
That's pretty rare for someone his height, isn't it?
Definitely. Having that kind of hand length at that height
Yeah.
can be a real game changer, especially on defense. It helps with blocking shots and grabbing those tough rebounds.
Yeah, I can see how those extra inches would come in handy. Now, what about the really tall guys?
Like Taco Fall.
Yeah, Taco Fall, he's 7'6". His hand's got to be massive.
So he had a hand length of 10.5 inches,
Okay, that's pretty big.
but his span was actually only 10.5 inches as well.
Oh, wow. So not as wide as you'd think.
Right. So even though he was incredibly tall,
Right.
his hands weren't necessarily the widest.
That's really interesting. It's like, it's not just about being tall.
It's about proportions
Yeah, the overall size of your hand relative to your body.
and how that translates to specific skills.
Okay, so we've gone through a lot of big hands here.
A whole lot of hands.
But we can't end this deep dive without talking about Victor Wembanyama.
The newest sensation.
He's the talk of the town. And from what I've seen, his hands are something else.
They're huge. It's hard to get official measurements right now,
Yeah.
but based on comparisons with Michael Jordan's handprints,
Okay.
it looks like he's got a length of about 10.25 inches
Wow.
and a span of around 10.75 inches.
So right up there with the legends.
It's pretty impressive.
And the reactions to his hands have been hilarious.
Oh, yeah. Have you seen that clip of Jalen Pickett shaking his hand?
No.
Oh, man. You got to look it up. Pickett's jaw just dropped. He was amazed.
That's great. Even among NBA players.
Right.
Wembanyama's hands are turning heads. Okay, so we've talked about the measurements.
I've seen some incredible numbers.
But let's break it down even further.
Yeah.
How do these large hands actually impact different skills on the court?
Right, because it's one thing to have big hands,
Yeah.
but it's another to actually use them effectively.
Exactly. So let's start with passing.
Okay.
Does having big hands make you a better passer?
Well, it certainly helps. It gives you a more secure grip,
Right?
so you can throw more accurate and powerful passes.
It's like having a better handle on the steering wheel.
Exactly. You got more control.
What about rebounding?
Oh, rebounding is all about hand size.
Hmm.
That increased surface area
Yeah.
helps you grab those boards in a crowd.
It's like having a bigger net to catch the ball.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You've got more room for error. Now, shooting is a bit more complex. Obviously, a secure grip is important,
Right.
but it's not the only thing. Technique and touch are just as crucial.
Right. Practice makes perfect.
Exactly. And as we saw with Shaq,
Right.
sometimes huge hands can even make shooting a bit harder.
Yeah, that was an interesting theory. Now I want to ask you about something I've heard called true palming.
True palming versus what they call pseudo palming.
Yeah, I don't really understand the difference.
Okay, so true palming is when you can cup the entire basketball in your palm
Wow.
with barely any finger involvement.
Okay.
It gives you incredible ball security
I can imagine.
and opens up all sorts of possibilities for fakes and changing direction.
So it's like you have complete control over the ball.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But to truly palm the ball, you need really big hands.
Right, that makes sense. So who are some players who can do that?
Giannis and Kahi are great examples.
Okay.
They're true palmers. Now, pseudo-palming,
Yeah.
that's when you grip the ball more with your fingers than your palm.
Okay. More like a normal grip.
Right. It's still effective, but it doesn't offer the same level of security and control as true palming.
So true palming is like the next level of ball handling.
It's like having a superpower.
It gives you a real edge. But it's not essential for success, right?
I mean, look at Kevin Durant, Kobe Bryant, Carmelo Anthony.
Incredible players.
Legends.
Oh, yeah.
And they all admitted that they couldn't truly palm a basketball,
Wow.
but they still achieved incredible things. It just goes to show you that hand size is only one piece of the puzzle.
You need talent, dedication, all the other stuff.
Absolutely. It's about the whole package.
It's about how you use what you've got.
Exactly.
Now, it's funny. I've heard some people say that smaller hands might actually be better for shooting accuracy.
Really?
Yeah, what do you think about that?
That's an interesting idea. I mean, the theory is that with slightly smaller hands,
Yeah.
you might develop a more refined feel for the ball,
Oh, okay.
more delicate touch.
Like a surgeon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that could lead to greater accuracy. Some people point to Stephen Curry.
Steph Curry, amazing shooter.
And Reggie Miller, another sharpshooter,
Yeah.
as examples of players who might have benefited from slightly smaller hands.
So it's like there's an optimal hand size for different skills.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
It's all about finding what works best for you.
It's fascinating how complex it is. Now, before we wrap up, I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about wingspan.
Wingspan.
It's not just about your hands.
No.
The length of your arms plays a huge role, too.
Especially on defense.
Yeah, when you're trying to block shots or grab rebounds.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And in the NBA, a lot of players have a wingspan that's actually greater than their height.
That's crazy. So how do they measure wingspan?
It's pretty simple. You just stand with your arms outstretched,
Okay.
and they measure from fingertip to fingertip.
Okay, so it's your full reach.
Exactly.
And that extra reach can be a huge advantage.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. I mean, just look at Manute Bol.
Manute Bol, the legend.
7'7" tall.
Wow.
But his wingspan was 8'6".
Are you serious?
Dead serious.
That's like having an extra set of arms.
It's insane.
Yeah.
And that reach made him an incredible shot blocker.
He was like a human wall.
Absolutely. He
Yeah.
led the league in blocks multiple times.
Yeah, and he has some of the highest blocks per game averages in NBA history.
And often in very limited minutes.
It's like he could block shots without even trying.
It was effortless. And then you got Kevin McHale.
Kevin McHale, another legend.
His wingspan was reportedly 8 feet.
8 feet.
Yep. There are stories that he could tie his shoes standing up
No way.
without even bending over.
That's amazing. Okay, so those are some of the all-time great wingspans. What about today's players?
So right now you've got guys like Mo Bamba
Okay.
and Boban Marjanović, who we talked about earlier.
Like Boban's everywhere.
Right. Both of them have 7'10" wingspans.
That's got to be a nightmare for opponents.
Oh, yeah, trying to score against those guys.
Sounds almost impossible.
They can cover so much ground. But it's important to remember
Yeah.
that not every player has a huge wingspan. Some guys have relatively short wingspans for their height.
So it's another example of how it's not just about one measurement.
It's about the whole picture
It's about how all these different physical attributes work together
and how players use their unique strengths.
to succeed in the game.
Exactly.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive
I know, right?
into the world of NBA hands and wingspans.
It's amazing how much variation there is.
From Boban and Shaq's colossal hands
Yeah, those guys are in a league of their own.
to Kawhi and Connie Hawkins and their surprisingly large hands for their height.
Right? And then you've got the incredible wingspans of guys like Manute Bol and Kevin McHale.
It's clear that these physical attributes play a role in a player's success.
They can give you a real advantage.
But it's important to remember that they're not the only thing that matters.
Absolutely. Skill, dedication, hard work, all those things are just as crucial.
And we've seen plenty of examples of highly successful players who didn't have exceptionally large hands or wingspans.
Right. It's not a guarantee of success.
It's about using what you have to the best of your ability.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up here, I'm left thinking about how this natural diversity in hand size and wingspan
Yeah.
really contributes to the beauty and variety of the NBA.
It makes the game so much more interesting.
It does. It's incredible to think about how something as simple as the length of your finger
Or the span of your arms.
can have such a profound impact on a professional athlete's career.
It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it.
It is.
And
So I want to leave our listeners with a question.
okay.
Which of these facts or comparisons did you find most surprising?
Ooh, good question.
And what does it tell us about the fascinating relationship between our physical attributes and athletic achievement?
Lots to think about.
Definitely food for thought.